The human spirit is unconquerable. We are individuals and we are sovereign, born with unlimited potential, gifted from our Creator. Our mission is to break free from the systems that bind us.
I volunteer as tribute.
We strive for peace and prosperity and overcome all challenges, roadblocks, and obstacles. We are empowered because we think for ourselves and we act for ourselves. We are self-reliant and independent, but guided by the wisdom of those who share our values.
What possible difference can I make?
There is no government, no ruler, nor ideas that are able to stop us. We are driven to succeed because we seek political freedom, financial freedom, and spiritual freedom.
It's all for nothing if you don't have freedom.
This is Mike Corbell, and you are listening to The Invictus Mind. Well, hello everyone. Thanks for checking out the Invictus Mind podcast. This is your host, Mike Corbell. There's a spirit going around these days. Actually, a couple of spirits. One is of fear, worry, and doubt, with the elections being uncertain, the COVID-19 lockdowns and general uncertainties, and fear of retaliation and violence in the street. But at the same time, there is a great spirit of positivity, of opportunity, and for those who are lucky enough to hear it, of hope for the coming years. With me today is a guy who I believe is one of those who can recognize opportunity when it's right in front of him. He's best known publicly as one of the Lions of Liberty. He's the host of the show Felony Friday, where he speaks to inspirational characters about incarceration and formerly incarcerated stories, and those who have overcome injustices and changed their life. In addition to that, he owns a business for health and nutritional products. Today we're just going to chat, get to know each other a little bit, and talk about our shows and our businesses and how they relate to finding freedom in the coming year. I'd like to welcome John Odermatt. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thank you for having me on the show. Happy to be here.
Great, great. You know, when we connected a couple weeks ago, it was a good time because I'm always looking at ways to enhance my skill set and business opportunities that are out there. And it seems that you publicly declared that you're going to change your direction of your show a little bit. So I figured I'd talk to you a little bit, kind of find out what makes you tick, and really, what it is that you love about podcasting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess to take the first thing you said there, publicly declaring to change the direction of my show, I guess that's referring to a post I made in our Lions of Liberty forum about, and honestly, that's not something I planned out. I had talked a little bit about it with Brian McWilliams. Brian's been on this show before, right?
Correct.
With Brian and with Mark. And, I mean, Felony Friday, that's my podcast currently on Lions of Liberty, focuses on the criminal justice system. Like you said, bringing forward those inspirational stories, people who either who have been wronged by the system, through, being thrown in prison via victimless crimes, maybe drug crimes, something like that, spending decades in prison, and they come out and, I'm always amazed by the thing that they're most concerned about. 99% of people I talk to, the thing they're most concerned about once they get out is turning around and helping other people who they know who are still in to get out. So it always amazes me and it inspires me. But just to go back to what you talked about with sort of changing my show, like I have thought about it for a while because one thing I don't like, it's not that I don't like it, but I like to have flexibility, and especially right now, which I think we're coming into a period of really transformational period in this world, in this country, for a lot of different reasons. Technology, the way social media is making it easier for everyone to communicate, and we can have calls like this at the drop of a hat. But I think that there's a lot of people out there doing amazing, incredible things, people overcoming amazing odds. And although I want to continue to focus on the criminal justice system because that's needed, I think there's just a lot of other stories and a lot of other areas where we need to shine a light. So I guess to come back and answer your question about why I love podcasting, one of the reasons why is because it gives you that flexibility. You can talk to anyone you want to. You can, if you have a show for 5 years, you decide you want to change the format and talk to different people, you can do that. You can ask different questions. You can do whatever brings you value and you believe will bring others value.
Yeah, I'm a podcast junkie because I've done a lot of sales calls for my day job, and I kind of hustle around with DoorDash at night, so I listen to podcasts a lot. And I've caught your show a few times. Of course, I love the Lions of Liberty and some of the other shows that I've checked on that. But you're right. When it comes to the changes going on in the world, I think it's very wise to be able to learn new skills and adapt to things going on because freedom itself is at risk, as we all probably can agree. Mm-hmm. But being able to see ahead and adapt to things that are coming our way will ensure that we maintain that freedom.
100% agree with you. And freedom, yes, freedom is at risk. I do agree with that statement. A lot of people will say that, we define our freedoms. The government, can't infringe on our liberty, which is true to a point. But I mean, if for example, with these stupid mask mandates, you could probably get by with, without wearing a mask, and they're probably not going to throw you in prison. Maybe they will eventually, but it's going to make your life more difficult. These stores have their mask mandates. If you go to, and they're backed by the state, so I think a lot of these stores probably wouldn't have it and probably wouldn't react this way unless the state was backing it. But if you want to go into Costco, you have to wear a mask. If you decide to not do that and, say you have a medical condition, maybe you get away with it, but you're going to get harassed. People are going to look at you. And it's sort of like this end-around assault on your freedom. And that's not even to say that masks don't work or they do work, or that's really not the point. The point is, that's individual choice if somebody is going to wear a mask, in my opinion. I
was going to ask you, you're in Pittsburgh, right, John?
Yes, I am.
I have actually not been to that city of all the dozens of cities I've been to, but I was going to ask what the situation was like with the lockdowns in Pittsburgh. Are they as crazy as probably it is here in Illinois?
I would assume it's probably worse. Well, maybe not Illinois. Illinois, probably out of the Midwest, is probably one of the worst ones because it's democratically run, I guess. You have a Democratic governor, right?
That's right.
Yeah, Pennsylvania does too, and we've been, he's pretty much gone. Our governor, Tom Wolf, has gone in lockstep with Cuomo in New York, Governor Cuomo, right there, to the point where even at the very beginning, if you remember the beginning of COVID with the lockdowns when they were putting COVID-positive patients in nursing homes, Cuomo did it, Wolf did the same thing, and they haven't really paid any repercussions for all those people that died, but. Yeah, I mean, it's not good. I think for a while they held off on doing lockdowns again because they didn't want to piss people off before the election. But I'm hearing rumblings that we're about to get locked down here in the next week or two, which would really suck, and I hope it doesn't happen. But it's stupid. Yeah, I'll talk to people like people who live in states like Indiana or Iowa. And I'll talk about some things here, like in our barber shops, for example, you have to wear a mask when you go in. You're not allowed to get your beard trimmed or your sideburns trimmed. You have to do that at home. They'll actually send in. I was talking to my barber last time I was in, and they'll actually send in inspectors with a beard asking for a beard trim, trying to catch you and giving you illegal beard trims.
Oh my gosh!
It's completely insane.
Well, luckily I can do my own trimming and shaving, so. Anyway, so it was interesting. I spoke to your buddy Brian a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me a little bit about the 3-year story. I haven't had a chance to speak to Mark yet, so he's next on my list. But you guys all went to college together in Pennsylvania, right?
We did. Yeah, we all went to Penn State, right in the middle of Pennsylvania there in State College, PA. And Mark and Brian are a little older than I am. They're both, I guess they're 3.5 years older than me, so I was a freshman when they were seniors, and I guess Brian took Brian 5 years, so I guess I was there with him for 2 years. But I got to know them better after college.
Okay.
When they were living in California, and my first job out of college was in Georgia. Then I got transferred out to California, so I was living about 45 minutes from where they were in LA. So I'll go there for the weekend and hang out and that's really where I got introduced to liberty. It was actually Mark who introduced me to Ron Paul. This is back in 2000, 1997, I guess, right at the right when Ron Paul was running for president, and at that time I was a neocon, I guess. I was one of those people who would get in arguments defending George Bush spreading democracy in the Middle East. It's ridiculous to think back on now, but that's what I thought had to be done. That was the only way that America's helping out. We're just being this great peacemaker, spreading peace in the Middle East by bombing people. Of course, I thought it was justified back then, and. But I was a Republican in the way that I was very fiscally conservative. I hadn't really looked into the Federal Reserve yet at all. I didn't know anything about that. So what Ron Paul opened my eyes to was the foreign policy in the Federal Reserve. As I started to learn about blowback and that our interventions overseas come back home to cause problems with the CIA defines blowback as exactly that. Our meddling in foreign countries can have blowback not only at our bases around those foreign countries and in allied countries, but also here in the United States. And 9/11 was exactly that. 9/11 was blowback. And I remember, that moment in 2007, I guess late 2007, Rudy Giuliani, Ron Paul on stage, and Ron Paul says exactly that it's because we're over there is why they came over here and why 9/11 happened. And Rudy Giuliani asks him to retract the statement. And Ron Paul just stares him down and just doubles down on it. And from that moment on, that really set me on my journey to liberty in general, and then eventually really more into a niche of criminal justice reform.
Yeah, that's on my bucket list to meet Ron Paul. I don't know how many people he has inspired, but it's got to be hundreds of thousands by now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've never met him either, and I would love to. He's he did have that stroke recently, which is kind of scary. But other than that, he seems to be in very good health. He is getting up there in age, but I think he's got a bunch of years left. So hopefully that can still happen. We can both meet him.
There you go. There's so much we can talk about when it comes to the Liberty front. And obviously on the Lions of Liberty, you have a very eclectic lineup there. And I'm just curious, what got you really interested in criminal justice reform? Because, that's an hour-long topic in itself.
Yeah. I mean, just to give you kind of the not short version, but I could talk about really the different factors in my life that led me to it. But like I said, growing up in a more conservative environment, I grew up in the suburbs outside of Pittsburgh, wasn't really exposed to, not that I wasn't exposed to drugs at all. I think any kid in high school these days, or when I was in high school 20 years ago, you're going to be exposed to drugs, but you're not exposed to people going to prison for drugs. You're not seeing, having classmates whose parents are going to prison and things like that. So in that aspect of it, I was insulated from that part of the drug war. But once I got out to California and I was working in a manufacturing plant and living in a very industrial area, when I got to this job in California, I was like a management trainee. So the first thing the plant manager asked me to do was to help human resources with hiring more people. I don't know why they asked me to help. I'm fresh out of college. What the heck do I know? I have nothing. I didn't know anything, but that's what they had me do. And it became very, very clear that I knew nothing very quickly as they had me go through resumes, and they gave me a couple things to look at on the resumes and things to zero in on. And I thought I was following the instructions, and I went through the stack of resumes and I pulled out the ones I thought were good, and I put aside the ones that I thought were bad. And one of the ways that I decided upon that was by seeing, the question on there: have you committed a felony? Have you committed a misdemeanor? And seeing if they did. And my mindset back then, if I saw somebody check the box that they did, I took their resume and I took it out of the pile, and essentially taking it out of a chance to get a job, which is crazy thinking about it in hindsight. But so what happened was I took those good resumes forward to my boss that didn't have any of the the people who had criminal history, and took them to him, and he started leafing through them, and he goes, "Where's all the resumes with people with a criminal record?" And I'm like, I took those ones out. I took them out, thinking like I did the right thing. And he's like, John, you understand, like half the people out there on the production floor have a criminal record.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit, I did not know that. He's like, yeah, some of our best workers. I'm like, wow, so that was like, bam, eye-opening moment. And then, as time went on from there, just getting to know a lot of these people, becoming friends with them, playing golf with them on the weekend, and understanding, a lot of them are drug crimes, and seeing that, even if you look at it as they made a mistake, I would argue with what I believe today, that a nonviolent drug crime is not a crime at all. There's no victim. But even if you're of the belief that you're breaking the law, you should pay for the crime. You got to forgive people, and you got to give people a second chance. And I learned that very quickly, and I learned that everyone deserves a second chance. And then what kind of even accelerated my passion more for the criminal justice system and for reform in the system was once I moved back to Pittsburgh and started dating my wife before we got married, and her brother, who was still in college at the time, got tied up selling marijuana to an undercover agent. And what they did, and this is what they do, is they continue to come back to buy, as many times as they need to get the quantity up until the amount where you can be charged with a felony. So that's what happened with him. And I think they thought they were like doing some big drug bust when they did it, but when they raided where he lived, all of his friends, and they raided a bunch of different houses. They found nothing on him, no paraphernalia, no drugs of any kind. His friends, who they were also, I guess, investigating as well, they found stuff with them. But his friends, I'm not 100% sure of this, but it's what I've gathered. I think one or two of them, don't really want to call them friends, but people he knew at the time, flipped on him. And they were able to pretty much get zero time and implicated him. And he didn't flip on them. So he ended up doing about a year in prison, time on probation, and without having, his family and people standing up for him and helping him get work and helping him get, now he's a plumber now, getting certified, get back on his feet, getting certified as a plumber, who knows where he would be. So seeing that and knowing that a lot of people don't have that support, and that's why you get this, the cycle of recidivism, and just hearing stories from him about just being, when you're in prison, just the way that you're treated by the prison guards. They just, a lot of these people have nothing going for them in life, and the only thing they have is that little bit of power they have over the prisoners. And they'll just go through your shit and break stuff and rip up letters and throw your books away and just treat you like human garbage, because that's all they have. That's not to say that everyone who's a prison guard is a bad person, but I think it definitely, people in that line of work, it attracts, I think, the lowest denominator. But after hearing that's what really set me off and set me down that road. To want to help to do what I can to change that system.
It's interesting because not everybody has an experience like that. I mean, I've been arrested once or twice just in, certain situations, never locked up for a long time. But then whenever you see encounters on TV or on the news about individuals with police, there's a lot of keyboard warriors who are quick to go, judging the cops as the bad guy. But then, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, like you said. But, not having that experience in prison, being able to hear the stories of people living that life is incredible to me, because it's not like the movies. It's a lot different, and sometimes very sad. So I'm not sure how many podcasts you've done, how many interviews you've done, but I've definitely listened to a handful. What were some of your, or maybe you can tell me some of your favorite stories of somebody who turned their life around after a wrongful conviction?
Yeah, I think I've done 250 some. So a little over 5 years, or I guess almost 5 years worth of podcasts. But I think one of my favorite ones, it's really one of the first ones I did, and it's when I realized I need to keep doing this. I need to double down on it. Because when I started the show, I didn't really have a set path. I knew I wanted to talk about criminal justice reform, but I didn't know I wanted to really personalize it. And I just kind of had, I started out just talking about, different laws, different things going on. And then I had on a couple guests who had been to prison. And one of my first guests, I think it was within the first 10 episodes, was a guy named Cas Marte. And he's a guy who, he was a big time drug dealer as a young kid. in New York. Making tons of money, having cars, having everything. Very successful entrepreneur in that respect, an illegal entrepreneur, and ends up getting busted, going to prison. He's very overweight at the time, gets in worse health when he's in prison, and comes to the point where the doctors tell him that he's going to die probably in a few years because he's so overweight, has blood pressure problems, all his markers are where they shouldn't be, and he makes the decision to get in shape. And he starts doing, prison workouts by himself. Mm-hmm. And eventually, he loses a lot of weight, gets in shape, and other prisoners come to him, start asking him for workouts. How do you do it? So he starts he slowly builds up this this group of prisoners, and he's pretty much he's like a personal trainer in prison, and he helps a lot of people to get in shape. Then when he gets out, he just starts working out in the park. And people in the park see this guy working out, what are you doing to get in shape? And he becomes just a volunteer personal trainer, and people would show up and work out with him in the park. And he turns that business into, it's now called Con Body. And what it is, it's in, I believe it's just in New York. He might have franchised it out in New York by now. I need to have him back on to talk about that. But it's prison workouts, and it's a very successful business where, think of it like a boot camp, but with prison style workouts. People go in, men and women of all ages, and you can go in and get a really good workout in. And I think all of his classes, not all, but a lot of them are taught by ex-cons too. So he's giving back, helping people get back on their feet. So that's an inspiring story. Another inspiring story, I'll give you one more. A guy by the name, this is more recent, I've had him on the show twice within the past year, Michael Monsivice, and he was in prison out in California, also for drugs. But when he went into prison, he was in 2 different times. He went back in the second time. He had gotten certified as a welder and had been working as a welder. And so when he went in, he had that skill. So when he goes back into prison, changes his mindset. He says, I'm going to, get things right this time. I'm not going to end up back in prison. I'm going to turn my life around. He's going, straight and narrow. Starts with help from the, prison administration, starts a welding certification program in prison, helping fellow inmates get certified in welding. And he's on the straight and narrow. And this has been written about by a bunch of different websites, Reason, I forget, a bunch of different prison reform websites have covered this riot. But what happened with Michael, and this was close to the time before he was about to get out, there was a riot in a neighboring building, and for some reason, they raided the group of cells that he was in that wasn't even in the building, and threw in flashbang grenades. One blew up right next to him. Wow. And just shredded his, he says that his pants melted off. He had, shrapnel, and his leg was pretty severely damaged. Instead of sending him for medical attention, they just put him in solitary confinement, and pretty much covered it up. And he's been fighting to shine a light on that. He has to some extent, but the people responsible for it have not been prosecuted in any way. But the good part about that story is he has gotten out since then. He started a nonprofit called No More Locked Doors, which helps people who either get those welding skills, or maybe if they don't get welding skills, who want to learn how to weld, who want to learn a trade once they get out, will get assistance through No More Locked Doors to get that certification, to get that get that hand out and hand up to learn how to weld, and then also get connected with a job in welding. So, I mean, that's the type of programs we need. That's the type of stuff we need for people coming out of prison to be able to come out and, be able to get back to society and add value.
Absolutely. It's a shame that the way society is that ex-felons can't find work very easily. We definitely need more entrepreneur opportunities, or, just teaching them business skills. Well, you told me some good inspirational stories. I'm sure you have a dozen more, but I want to talk just briefly about some of the stories that just irritated you, just pissed you off. There's so many of them. I mean, obviously you have a passion for finding out why the criminal justice system is broken. So What's the one story that just popped in your head, just pisses you off to no end?
Well, I mean, there's a lot, and it's hard to. I mean, it's hard to pick one. I mean, the one that really pisses me off, like I got to tell you what first popped in my head, and it's Ross Ulbricht, and
Okay.
I'm sure you're familiar with Silk Road.
Absolutely.
I don't know if your listeners are. I mean, they might not be as familiar with it as you and I would be. But Silk Road, just to give just a quick overview, it was a dark web, basically a site that hosted transactions where you could go online and you could have mutual transactions between people. And essentially what it was a place where a lot of people went to buy marijuana. And if you read about Silk Road, the way that they've made it out to be, they say that there was, child trafficking and, there was murder for hire going on. That stuff's not true. That's just all propaganda, and it's fake news, as they say. But what happened with Silk Road that really pisses me off is there were federal agents got involved, and were actually involved as administrators in Silk Road. So the way that Silk Road operated is there was an administrator called Dread Pirate Roberts, and when Ross Ulbricht was prosecuted, it was made for the jury to believe, stated as fact, that he was the only Dread Pirate Roberts. But the truth of the matter is there were federal agents acting also as Dread Pirate Roberts. And this is proven, but was not allowed to be presented at the trial because when Ross was in custody in a jail cell, people were still logging in as Dread Pirate Roberts.
Wow.
So there were a lot of things that happened that are crazy. Federal agents stole Bitcoin from Silk Road, and that information was not allowed to be presented at trial. The stuff about there being multiple Dread Pirate Roberts cannot be presented at trial. And Ross Ulbricht is in prison for life. That's just ridiculous. A very bright young man. I've had his mom, Lynn Ulbricht, on my show twice. She's become just a warrior for not only criminal justice reform, but just for the ideas of liberty in general. And this is someone who, before her son got arrested and got convicted, had no ties to that community in any way whatsoever. So that's the one that jumps out to me right away is Ross Ulbricht. There's so many cases. Just when you talk about conspiracy laws, people don't understand how easily it is to get tied up in a drug conspiracy. I've had on many guests, actually a lot of women, who would end up spending multiple years, decades sometimes, in prison for just being involved in the commission of a crime, in quotation marks, to the extent that maybe they answer the phone, or they drive a vehicle, or they are just accused of doing that and didn't even do it.
They're just there because maybe their significant other was involved, heavier or something like that?
Correct.
Yeah.
And the other thing, one story recently, maybe 10 or 15 episodes ago, had a guy on named Rufus Rochelle, one of the most kind-hearted souls that you'll ever meet. And thankfully, he got out of prison due to compassionate release, thanks to the First Step Act here recently. He got out. But he's one of the many people who went to prison, got convicted, no drugs were ever found on him. There's nothing they could ever pin to him, no hard evidence, 100%. The only thing was hearsay testimony and ghost dope, which is just hearsay, people saying, I bought this much dope, or I saw him with this much dope. And it's ridiculous. People don't understand how easy it is to send someone to prison. They think, well, you must have done something wrong. No, a lot of times, no, you don't. They could send anyone to prison. And the truth of the matter is, something like 90% or 95% of federal cases go to plea deals. And the reason for that is because you don't win. If you go to trial in one of these, even if you're innocent and you have all the evidence that you think you need to prove you're innocent, you're not going to win. The government is not going to let you in. Well,
that's why it's a racket, right? The plea deal racket. They just want to have quick plea deals because then the prosecutor and the state is making money off of that.
Exactly. Oh yeah, the whole thing's a racket.
Incredible. You were talking about victimless crimes before, and I think my wife and I we met in a libertarian on the 4th of July in a parade at the Libertarian Party, and we clicked instantly because we always talked about the drug war, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. The trillions of dollars that have been wasted, the millions, I don't know if it's millions, but lots of lives that have been ruined, and just and who's really the victim in a lot of these crimes? I mean, if you're smoking a joint or something like that, who are you hurting?
Right.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, not even. I mean, even if somebody's doing something, even if somebody's damaging their body, taking, I would argue a more harmful drug, like if someone's shooting up heroin or something like that. Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm in favor of decriminalizing all drugs. I don't think someone should go to jail for that, but that doesn't mean I'm in favor of people doing heroin. I just don't think it's something that should be criminalized, and it's been proven that it doesn't work. It actually makes the problem worse. I mean, you look at what's happened with the opioid epidemic is, I mean, for a lot of different reasons, you had people getting hooked on opiates because pharmaceutical companies were pushing them out to doctors saying, "Oh, there's no addiction here. People aren't going to get addicted," and people did end up getting addicted. Then they cut that supply back, and then you have people going onto the black market, and most of the people who are ODing from opiates, number one, it's not intentional. These people do not want to OD. They do not want to die. Mm-hmm. They're just addicted, and they need that fix. And what's causing it is it's fentanyl, and it's fentanyl from China or Mexico, and the reason why that happens is because of the prohibition on the drug market. If you didn't have the prohibition on the drug market, we'll have people could get that fix. As much as you want people not to be on drugs, you'd rather they be on drugs where they know what they're getting, rather than a situation where they could die if they take something that they think is safe. But on top of that, and not to go on too much of a rant, but I mean, you look at places like Portugal and like Switzerland. I always talk about Switzerland's program. They've had it since 1994. They haven't had one overdose. And a lot of people that get on their program end up getting off of opiates and end up getting off of heroin. They have a safe injection program, and it is state-run, which as a libertarian, I'm not as much in favor of that per se, but it's better than what we have here. Mm-hmm. So what their program is essentially, yes, you can go to these safe injection sites. You can get your dose of heroin, safely to know that you're not going to die. And what ends up happening is they, give other incentives. They help people to find jobs, help people to, start businesses, things like that. Help people to get some sort of, optimism going in their life. Mm-hmm. And what that ends up doing is they end up getting off of heroin. They slowly wean themselves off and don't come back. And I'm not one of those people who's in favor of one way or another to help addiction. I think it's individual. I think everyone's different, and whatever works. I don't want to say that one way's right and one way's wrong. And maybe some people can never get off of it, but I think a lot of people can if they have, if they're able to really get out of whatever is either depressing them or sapping their hope.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many consequences to the drug war, and you try to have a conversation with somebody, depending on where they are on the political spectrum, it's going to be completely different. Mm-hmm. But, sometimes we talked a little bit about victimless crimes, but obviously there are actual crimes and guilty criminals that you've talked to in the past, but they've had either a revelation or some kind of awakening or something like that. I really liked I think the podcast you put out last week. It was the guy who was on death row. His story, I mean, it's a tragic story, but at least he had a great attitude. I thought you did a good job with that.
Yeah, that's just recent with the. So I've had 3 interviews with death row inmates, and I got one more coming up next week. But yeah, that's something that I had the opportunity presented to me. Had a listener of the show had a contact with Tessie Castillo, who's one of the co-authors who wrote this book, Voices from Death Row, the Crimson Letters, Voices from Death Row, with these 4 inmates. And yes, they are, well, the 3 interviews I have out, all of them think all of them have admit their guilt. The one that's going to be next week, he's actually he claims that he's innocent, and he's still fighting for his freedom. But yeah, it's interesting talking to someone, and it's a little bit chilling talking to someone on the phone who openly admits that they've murdered someone, but then can still, talk about how they find value in life. And I think that's important. That's an important takeaway. It's so easy, as I think we've been conditioned in a way through, just the way we look at life, that, if somebody commits the most horrific wrong, taking someone else's life, that, it's okay, it's justified to take their life. And I used to think that way. I used to be in favor of the death penalty. But the way I look at it now, I mean, number one reason I'm not in favor of the death penalty is because I don't want any innocent people put to death. And that's number one. And the only way to do that is not have a death penalty, and not having the state in charge of who lives and who dies. I don't think that's not a good recipe. But talking with people who admit that, yes, they have killed someone, and then hearing them explain how they have evolved and really found inspiration in ways to give back to society by writing, by creating music, by doing these different things. It's really inspiring in sort of a weird way, because people make mistakes, and taking someone's life, that is the greatest mistake you can make. And it almost sounds too light to call it a mistake. It's worse than a mistake. Mm-hmm. But just because that's done doesn't mean another life should be extinguished, because you don't know the impact that person can have on other lives still. That doesn't mean that everyone will, but it doesn't mean that the people won't. And even just people in in that person's orbit, also on death row, like my guest last week, who's his faith is Islam, but the previous two, their faith, they're Christians, and they've found, through their faith, they found peace, and they found inspiration to, I asked all three of them the question, what do you want to be remembered for when people say your name years from now when you're gone? And they all gave different variations of the same answer, but they want to matter, and they want to make a difference, and they want people to really look back and look at their life and say, he tried to make a difference. And I think a lot can be taken from that for you and me, for us on the outside. I mean, we get frustrated with different things that are happening with the election or with COVID, and mm-hmm. talk about lockdowns coming back, and there's a lot of noise. And if you could just focus on what can I do today to make a difference, not only I think most importantly, we have to worry about ourselves first, to be healthy, both spiritually, physically, mentally, in order to make a difference. So take care of yourself, but as soon as you do that, take care of your family, take care of your friends, and then try to put that message out so you can inspire others. That's It's hard to do sometimes, but that's what I try to do every day.
Yeah, you made a comment on one of your shows, I heard, that people who are not actual in metal cages sometimes imprison themselves, whether they are under punishment or incarcerated, that we put ourselves in our own prison. And just having stories of releasing ourselves from prison, or the literal prison that we're in, or the figurative prisons that we put ourselves in. I think more people in this world need to hear stories like that.
100% agree with you. And it's not only, I think like what my mind goes to immediately when you say that is just the structure of society that we live in today. And people are afraid to test the boundaries of it, be it, especially when it comes to, what's acceptable economically. I think people become very tied to, having a 9-to-5 job. They become tied to, having their health care guaranteed through that 9-to-5 job, to the point that it stops them from taking really not even risks, from seizing opportunities that help to mitigate risks of losing that 9-to-5 job. So I think we are part of the transformation, the transition we're going through as a society. I think that 9-to-5 salaried job, not across the board. I mean, you're still going to have doctors and engineers and nurses and stuff like that. But I think we're shifting to a more creative society. We're shifting to a more decentralized society. And the people who are willing to embrace that are the ones who are going to find success earliest, and then we're going to be able to compound that success and find more opportunities.
Yeah, I spent many years of my life, of my career, teaching people how to escape from the financial prison they put themselves in. You know, people think that having that 9-to-5 job is security, but obviously it's not when they're riddled with thousands of dollars of debt. And as we can see, just this year alone, the government can just willy-nilly shut down your job for any reason they want. And now you've had debt and everything else. People end up just horrible things happen to them. And so, you know, the shift in the, I call it an era of mankind, right? The shift in society. You know, I think entrepreneurism is alive and strong, and it needs to be promoted. That's why I was really interested in getting you on the podcast, John, because you know, when we did connect, you were talking to me a little bit about your business, and I want to shift a little bit here in our conversation, talking about some of the things that you've done. You know, I don't know if you have a 9-to-5 job or not, John, but you know, some of the things that you see in the future for yourself to become more free.
Yeah, I do have a 9-to-5 job, and let me just talk about that first for a minute, because I think I think what I've learned and the focus of my 9-to-5 job has helped me to identify opportunities outside of it. What I do for a living mostly is risk management. So, you know, I'm always looking at cost benefits of things. I'm always looking at ways to mitigate risks, you know, ways to enhance opportunities, things like that. I'm not going to lie. Eventually, I will be out of my I will be able to leave my 9-to-5 job and just be a full-time entrepreneur. Maybe sooner rather than later. We'll see how things go in the next few months. But the different things that I do. Of course, we have the podcast, and that is an income stream. And one of the things I talk about is diversification of income. Everyone talks about diversification of investments. I think diversifying your income is more important, and not only diversifying it in just different streams, which is important, but also, you know, income streams that do well in good economic times, income streams that tend to do better in poor economic times. So you have that insulation to bounce back and forth and kind of put your energy where you're seeing growth. And if you're seeing growth everywhere, just find a way to scale up. But so we have the podcast, and that is an income stream. Not to the point where we're making a lot, but you know, we haven't had to pay for anything for years, and you know, all of our computers and all that stuff, all of our equipment, you know, that's all paid for, which is nice and helps us to bring, you know, the best possible product to our fans. But I also do land investing. I have 2 different land investing businesses, which, to be honest, I've been neglecting to a certain extent right now, but we'll be ramping that up into 2021. And then I do, like you talked about with the health supplements, I do network marketing. My wife and I are leaders in a network marketing company, Plexus. And, you know, it is an industry that, you know, people have different opinions on. There's people who have negative opinions, I think for justified reasons, because I think there are companies that have taken advantage of people with compensation structures and different ways that they recruit. So I'm not here to speak in defense of an entire industry, and because I don't think that any industry is 100% good or clean. There's going to be nefarious actors in any industry. But
well, not only that, you'll have success stories and failure stories in every industry. So it's all in somebody's ability to take control of what they're doing, right? You know, if you, you know, I've had some experience with multi-level marketing, and you know, there is a bad connotation to that, and it's more like, okay, well, the people who are complaining about it are the ones who've probably got involved and failed, and you know, they have a sour taste in their mouth. But I know plenty of people who are making a really good living because they treat it like a business, like you should any other business.
Absolutely, you're going to get what you're going to get back what you put into it, and not get rich quick. There's no such thing as a get rich quick scheme. The thing that I love about Plexus, when I signed up and I started using the products, I was not looking for a business. I was looking to get healthy. And that's what happened. I got healthy. I mean, I've lost a lot of weight. I feel like, and I know that I'm in the best shape of my life right now. It's gut-centric, focused on healing your gut from the inside out, which I think is so important, especially right now with COVID, and we're talking about immunity and things of that nature. But just to talk about, network marketing for a minute. Oh, and also, it just kind of ties into it. Also launching a coffee brand, which should be launching hopefully by Thanksgiving, called Run Your Mouth Coffee. Me and a friend are launching that, focused on Run Your Mouth. It's free speech proponent coffee. So, we want people to advocate for free speech and use the coffee as a tool to advance freedom of speech, because I think that's so important right now. But how that ties into network marketing is by going through the process again of starting a business, which I've done in the past. You get reminded of all the freaking crap. I don't know if I can swear on this show, but
go ahead. Whatever's on your mind, man.
you get reminded of all the bullshit and all the hurdles that you have to jump through. Be it from sales tax and getting different permits, and you're dealing with suppliers and making sure you're set up, with your accountant, and you have to have accounting software, and you have to open a bank account, and you have to start an LLC. Which this stuff is not difficult, but it's hurdles, and it's a pain in the ass, and it's only going to get more of a pain in the ass, which hopefully, and I think we will be successful, as we have to scale up, which is fine. That's a good reason to have a pain in the ass when you have to scale up something like that. But where it comes back to network marketing or MLM, whatever you want to call it, social selling, people call it all kinds of different things now, is network marketing gives you an opportunity to take a proven product that has all the marketing, all the legal's been taken care of. You don't have to worry about, getting your sales tax permits and all that crap. You get paid on a 1099. You can still take all the advantages of tax write-offs, things like that. You can travel and do things for your business and write that off. You can invest in your business and write that off. You can, write off if you have a home office, you can write off your internet, your phone, your utilities, things like that. You can get all those advantages without the headaches of everything else you have to deal with when you're starting a traditional business. Now, of course, you don't have control over the products and things like that, but when it comes to supplements and really technical and advanced formulas that you're going to have with the company like Plexus, I couldn't do that anyway. I don't have the money to do that. So it gives you an ability to sort of, as I like to say, stick your foot into a revenue stream that you normally wouldn't be able to. I think sticking your foot in the coffee revenue stream, it's a little easier to scale that up. Coffee beans are coffee beans. Supplements are a little more complicated.
Yeah, so I'd probably like to talk to you more offline about your particular business, but I was thinking of how we can tie the front part of this show to the back end, and I'm going to tell you a story about my MLM I've been in. So I've been in financial services for 15 years, and I shared this story before in the podcast about how there's two tracks. You can actually be the advisor, the consultant, have all your financial licenses and sit down with clients, or you can put together a team and you can recruit people. Well, I'll never forget this one time I ran into somebody who I wanted to hire into the business. And in these kind of businesses, you want to know somebody who's got a good mindset, positive outlook, and who seems ambitious. And so I met this guy, and as I was going through the interview, I asked him to tell me about his background. And he's like, well, yeah, I was in prison for 10 years. And I'm like, really? And I asked him to share his story. He's like, I killed somebody. I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, it was second degree. He got 10 years. And I loved his attitude, but we're in the financial industry. So in that industry, people look at the records. They look at the FINRA records and, the broker-dealer check. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, man. I don't know if anyone's going to trust you to go into their house and deal with their money because of your criminal background. And it's such a shame because, it's a good opportunity. And so I'm not sure if you have any kind of restrictions like that in your business, but I know there's still other opportunities out there for people like that.
Yeah, there are no restrictions with. I know with Plexus. I mean, there's felons who are, who are ambassadors in the business that do well. So yeah, there's no restrictions there. I do. I mean, that does kind of make sense. Even getting the financial licensing you would need, I think, is a hurdle. When I say makes sense, I don't mean I agree with it. I'm saying that I have heard of that before because I know it's difficult, possible but difficult to get a real estate license, at least in Pennsylvania, if you have a felony. But I know people who have done it. So.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Well, John, I really appreciate this conversation. Your podcast is interesting, and I'm not sure exactly what your new show is going to be like if you continue doing Felony Friday, or maybe you'll do an alternative podcast or not. But here at the Invictus Mind, I love to talk to different people with different stories, mainly inspirational stories. I don't talk strictly about liberty, but that seems to be the theme most of the time. And your buddy Brian gave me a hard time when I failed to ask him this question the other day because it was related to the name of my show.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard my show or not, any of the episodes, John, but I'm just going to throw this out there. Are you Invictus?
Yeah, I did hear that question, and I put some thought into it. Yes, I am Invictus, and I think the thing that holds a lot of people back from being Invictus is fear. It's ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's the own limitations. It's the limitations that we put on ourselves. So, and really, that's the only thing holding anyone back from being Invictus. I mean, there's different perceptions that. I'm not saying everyone grows up on the same level playing field. Some people grow up in much worse situations than others. I'm very blessed, very lucky. But anybody, not to sound, like I'm touting the American dream here, but even today in this country, maybe especially today, just with the access everyone has to technology, being able to create videos on your phone and start a YouTube channel, start a podcast, whatever the heck you want to do, you can reach anyone and you can learn anything. Be it YouTube or all the free materials that is out there. So, yes, I'm Invictus, and I think anybody can be Invictus. Awesome. Great answer, John. I appreciate that. Well, you've spent some time talking about your various businesses and ventures you got. You have anything else that you want to plug? Maybe tell everyone what you're doing currently, where they can check you out. Yeah, I would say just go to check out our podcast, Lions of Liberty. It's the Lions of Liberty podcast. Like Michael said, we have the 3 shows. We have a show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We might be switching days to Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but regardless, just go subscribe to the Lions of Liberty podcast. I mean, it's on every podcasting app. You can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Parler. It's at John Odermatt, at JOHNODERMATT. And also on Facebook, too. You can just Google John, or not Google, you can just search in Facebook John A. Odermatt, and I should pop up. I think there's one other John Odermatt who used to work for Rudy Giuliani in New York City. I know that because sometimes I get his emails.
Oh, there you go. Interesting. All right, well, great. Thanks. I'm going to stop the recording here. Stick on the line for a minute, though, okay?
All right.